I was holding a champagne flute when my wife said it. The glass was cold against my palm, condensation slipping through my fingers. The hotel ballroom smelled like roasted chicken and furniture polish. Somebody laughed too loud near the bar. Sharon leaned toward her sister Linda and said, clear as a bell, 5 more minutes and we can finally get out of here. God, I can't believe I have to stand next to this useless man for another second. Linda giggled. At least it's almost over. Sharon adjusted her necklace, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary 3 years ago. Trust me, after tonight, everything changes. The DJ switched songs. Frank Sinatra. My Way. I set the glass down on the nearest table before my hand could shake too hard. If you've ever felt invisible at your own celebration, hit that like button right now. This story is for you. Sharon didn't know I was standing 6 feet behind her. The marble column hid me perfectly. She also didn't know that in about 4 minutes, Richard Calloway, the CEO of North Point Manufacturing, was going to walk onto that little stage and announce my retirement package. The one Sharon thought was worth maybe $20,000, the one that was actually worth $5.2 million. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up a little. My name is Gene Merrick. I was 59 years old that October, living in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I'd been a machinist most of my life. 37 years of metal shavings, measuring tools, and hands that never quite stopped smelling like cutting oil. I started at North Point when I was 22, fresh out of a technical program, young enough to think I'd work there 5 years and move on to something bigger. I worked there 37. Sharon and I had been married 14 years. It was my second marriage, her third. We met at a community center dance class. She wore a green dress. I stepped on her foot during a waltz. She laughed. I apologized 6 times. We got coffee after. That was February of 2012. We were married by June. I thought we were happy. I thought she loved me the way I loved her. I thought a lot of things. The early years were good. We'd take walks around the neighborhood on Sunday mornings. Sharon would make banana bread. The house would smell like cinnamon and butter. We'd sit on the back porch with coffee and talk about nothing important. The weather, the neighbors, what to plant in the garden, simple things, comfortable things. But somewhere around year 5, things shifted. Sharon started mentioning her friends' husbands, how Todd just made partner at his law firm, how Marcus bought his wife a new Lexus, how James took Linda to Paris for their anniversary. She'd say it casually, like it was just conversation. But I heard the edge underneath. Gene, she'd say, don't you ever want to do something bigger, make more money, move up? I'd tell her I was happy at North Point, that I liked the work, that we had everything we needed. She'd smile, nod, change the subject. But the comments kept coming. Sharon had a daughter from her second marriage, Brianna, 26 years old that fall. Brianna worked in marketing for a tech startup in Des Moines, drove a leased BMW, and wore sunglasses indoors. She called me Gene, never Dad, which was fine. I didn't push it. She'd been 16 when Sharon and I got married, old enough to have her own opinions about her mother's new husband. The guy who wasn't as successful as her real father. The guy who smelled like machine oil and wore work boots to Sunday dinner. I tried. I really did. When Brianna was 21 and got her first apartment, the landlord wanted a co-signer. Her credit was trashed from maxed-out credit cards and an unpaid hospital bill. Her father refused to help. Sharon came to me, sat at the kitchen table with the lease agreement, touched my hand. Gene, she said, I know it's asking a lot, but she's my daughter. She needs help. I signed. Brianna moved in. 2 months later, she was late on rent. I got the call from the landlord, paid it myself, $650. Brianna texted me 3 days later. Thanks. That was it. When Brianna was 23, her BMW broke down. Transmission issue. The dealership wanted $4,000 to fix it. Brianna called Sharon in tears. Sharon came to me again. I know you just got your bonus from North Point, she said. It's only $4,500. Could you help her out? I wrote the check, drove it to the dealership myself. Brianna picked up the car the next day. I asked if it was running okay. She said yes, checked her phone, said she had to go. I stood in the parking lot and watched her drive away. The BMW's brake lights flickered, then disappeared around the corner. When Brianna was 25, her laptop died. She needed it for work, couldn't afford a new one. Sharon asked if I could fix it. I spent 3 evenings in the garage rebuilding the hard drive, replacing the battery, cleaning out malware. Got it running again. Dropped it off at Brianna's apartment on a Saturday morning. She answered the door in pajamas. Took the laptop. Said thanks. Started to close the door. "Brianna," I said, "is everything okay?" She looked at me. Really looked at me. For a second I thought she was going to say something real, something honest. But then her face went blank. "Everything's fine, Jean," she said. "I appreciate the help." She closed the door. I never asked for a thank you, but I noticed when I didn't get one. Sharon didn't work. She'd had a job at a call center when we met, but she quit after we got married. Said it was too stressful. Said the customers were rude. Said she couldn't handle the pressure. I didn't mind. My salary was good. We had the house paid off. I'd inherited it from my mother in 2015. 3 bedrooms, small yard, garage with good light. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Or I thought it was ours. Year 7. Sharon stopped cooking. Said she was tired. Said she needed a break. I started bringing home takeout. Chinese on Mondays, pizza on Wednesdays, burgers on Fridays. Sharon would eat and leave the containers on the table. I'd clean them up after she went to bed. Year 8. Sharon stopped asking about my day. I'd come home with grease under my fingernails and aching shoulders. She'd be on the couch watching TV. I'd say hello. She'd nod. Keep watching. I'd shower, make a sandwich, sit in the garage with a beer and my tools. Year 9. We stopped having sex. Sharon said she wasn't in the mood. Said she was stressed. Said maybe next week. Next week never came. I didn't push. Didn't want to be that guy. Year 10. Sharon started going out more. Book club on Thursdays, yoga class on Tuesdays, brunch with Linda on Saturdays, financial planning seminar on Sunday afternoons. I stayed home, watched football, fixed things around the house, organized my tools, measured things, made sure everything was square. The small humiliations added up. There was the time Sharon's sister Linda came over for dinner. I was grilling steaks in the backyard. Linda was talking about her husband Mark's new promotion, assistant manager at the credit union. Sharon jumped in. "That's wonderful," Sharon said. "Mark's so ambitious, always climbing that ladder." Linda glanced at me. "Jean's done well too. What is it now, 35 years at North Point?" 36, I said, flipping a steak. Sharon waved her hand. "Jean's comfortable where he is. Aren't you, honey? No need to stress about promotions or raises. He's happy just doing his job." The way she said it, just doing his job, like I was punching a clock, like I hadn't trained 50 machinists, like I hadn't contributed to patents that made North Point millions, like my work didn't matter. I didn't say anything. Measure twice, cut once. Don't react. Stay steady. There was the time we went to Brianna's work party, some start-up thing at a brewery downtown. Young people everywhere. Craft beer, Edison bulbs, everyone talking about apps and user engagement and growth metrics. Brianna introduced us to her colleagues. "This is my mom Sharon and her husband Jean," she said. Her husband, not my stepdad, not my mom's husband. Her husband, like I was furniture Sharon brought with her. One of Brianna's co-workers, a guy named Tyler with a man bun, shook my hand. "What do you do, Jean?" "I'm a machinist," I said. Tyler's face went blank. "Oh, cool. Like, you make machines." "I make parts," I said. "Precision parts. For manufacturing equipment." "Huh," Tyler said. He turned to Sharon. "And what do you do?" Sharon smiled, bright, confident. "I'm between opportunities right now, taking time to explore my options." She hadn't worked in 12 years. Tyler nodded like she'd said something profound. "That's so important, self-care, knowing what you want." I stood there holding a beer I didn't want, listening to Sharon talk about self-care, and thought about the 47-hour week I'd just worked to cover the mortgage, the utilities, the car insurance, and the $300 Sharon spent at Target buying throw pillows. I didn't say anything. Measure twice, cut once. There was the time Sharon's book club met at our house. 6 women sitting in my living room drinking wine and talking about some novel I'd never heard of. I was in the garage organizing fasteners, sorting screws by size, 1/4 inch, 5/16, 3/8, making sure everything had its place. I heard laughter, went inside to refill my water bottle. The women went quiet when I walked through. Sharon looked up. "Jean, we're in the middle of a discussion." "Sorry," I said. "Just getting water." I filled my bottle, heard one of the women whisper, "Is that your husband?" "Unfortunately," Sharon said. The women laughed. I closed the refrigerator door, walked back to the garage. My hands were shaking. I set the water bottle down, picked up a micrometer, held it until my hands stopped shaking. Measure twice, cut once. The signs were small at first. Sharon started going to a book club on Thursdays, then a yoga class on Tuesdays, then a financial planning seminar on Saturday mornings. I didn't think much of it. I was glad she had hobbies. I was working overtime most weeks anyway, trying to bank extra hours before retirement. But I noticed things. Sharon started dressing nicer, new jeans, new tops. She'd always been particular about her appearance, but this was different. She bought perfume, started wearing makeup to yoga class. I asked her once if she was meeting someone special. She laughed, said I was being paranoid, said it was just self-care. That word again. Sharon started password protecting her phone, said it was for security, said everyone did it. I didn't have a password on mine, didn't need one, didn't have anything to hide. Sharon started coming home later. Book club used to end at 8 p.m, then it was 9 Mong, then 10 Mong. I'd ask how it went. She'd say fine, say they lost track of time, say she was tired and going to bed. I measured the distance between us, measured the silences, measured the way she looked past me instead of at me, measured the way she flinched when I touched her hand. Something was wrong. I knew it the way a machinist knows when a part is out of tolerance. Not because of one measurement, because of all of them. But that was only the beginning. In July, Sharon asked me about the house deed. Said she wanted to make sure everything was in order for estate planning. I told her it was in my name, since I'd inherited it. She got quiet, then she smiled. Said that made sense. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from a law office in Des Moines asking me to confirm my address for some paperwork Sharon was filing. I called the number. They said it was about adding her name to the deed. For financial security. I never signed anything. But Sharon kept asking. In August, Sharon told me she'd opened a separate bank account for her personal expenses, she said. She didn't want to bother me with her shopping receipts. I thought it was reasonable. I transferred $3,000 into it as a gesture of trust. She thanked me, kissed my cheek. 2 days later, Brianna posted photos from a spa weekend in Kansas City. Sharon was in every picture. I didn't say anything. Measure twice, cut once, that was my rule. In the shop and in life. Don't assume, verify. In September, Sharon started talking about my retirement party. North Point always threw a dinner for employees who hit 35 years. Mine was coming up in October. Sharon got excited. She wanted to invite people. She wanted a venue. She wanted it to be special. I told her North Point was handling it. She got irritated, said I never let her plan anything. I backed down, told her she could help with the guest list. She invited 40 people. I knew maybe 12 of them. The week before the party, I was in the garage organizing my toolbox. I kept most of my machinist tools there, the ones I'd bought over the years, not the ones North Point owned. Calipers, micrometers, dial indicators. I was cleaning a set of gauge blocks when I heard Sharon on the phone in the kitchen. The window was open. I wasn't trying to listen, but I heard her anyway. It's almost done, she said. Jean's too stupid to notice anything. After the party, we move forward. The house appraiser is coming Monday. Once we sell it, we split it, and I'm gone. Brianna's already looking at condos in Denver. My hands stopped moving. The gauge block felt cold and heavy. Sharon laughed. It was a sound I'd heard 1,000 times, but I'd never heard it like that. Sharp. Mean. He'll be devastated, she said. But honestly, Linda, he had it coming. 14 years of watching him shuffle around in those ugly work boots. 14 years of listening to him talk about tolerance levels and feed rates. I deserve better. We both do. I set the gauge block down. My hand was shaking. I shoved it in my pocket and kept standing there until the shaking stopped. Then I walked out to the driveway, like I was checking the mail, like I was just a man out for a short evening walk, like I wasn't about to throw up. Measure twice, cut once. I didn't confront Sharon. I didn't yell, I didn't ask questions. I went to work the next morning like nothing had happened, clocked in at 6 a.m., ran a job on the CNC lathe, checked dimensions, logged my hours, came home. Ate the dinner Sharon made, watched a little TV, went to bed. But Monday morning I didn't go to work. I called in sick. Then I drove to a law office on First Avenue. A guy named Tom Pritchard. I'd met him once at a Chamber of Commerce dinner years ago. He remembered me. "Jean," Tom said, shaking my hand. His office smelled like coffee and old paper. "What brings you in?" I sat down, took a breath. "I need to know what my wife can and can't take from me." Tom leaned back in his chair. "Tell me what's going on." I told him. The overheard phone call, the house deed questions, the separate bank account, the spa weekend, the retirement party. Tom listened, didn't interrupt, took notes on a yellow pad. When I finished, Tom set his pen down. "Jean, Iowa is not a community property state. It's an equitable distribution state. That means in a divorce, assets get divided based on what's fair, not automatically 50-50. "The house," I said. "I inherited it. Does she get half?" "No," Tom said. "Inherited property stays with the person who inherited it. As long as you didn't commingle it, you didn't add her to the deed, right?" "No." "Good, the house is yours. But anything you earned during the marriage, any joint accounts, any property you bought together, that's up for division." I nodded. "What about my retirement?" "Your pension. And a buyout package. North Point's offering early retirement buyouts to senior employees. I'm one of them." Tom raised an eyebrow. "How much are we talking?" I pulled a folded letter from my jacket. I'd gotten it 3 weeks ago. I hadn't told Sharon. The letter was from North Point's CFO. It outlined the package, pension, 401k, stock options, and a lump sum buyout for my 37 years of institutional knowledge, my role training new machinists, and my work on 3 patents the company held for specialized tooling. Tom read it. His eyes widened. "Jean, this is $5.2 million. "I know." "Does Sharon know?" "She thinks it's maybe 20,000. "That's what I told her." Tom looked at me for a long time. Then he smiled. "You're smarter than you look." "I'm a machinist," I said. "I measure things." We spent the next 2 hours going over everything. Tom explained how to protect the buyout, since Sharon didn't know about it, and since I hadn't received the money yet, it wasn't a marital asset. Once I received it, I needed to keep it completely separate. No joint accounts, no commingling, no gifts to Sharon. Tom also explained how to document everything. Phone records, bank statements, emails, receipts. If Sharon was planning to leave, if she was trying to take the house, if she was hiding money, I needed proof. "Jean," Tom said as I was leaving, "do you love her?" I thought about it, about the green dress, about the waltz, about 14 years of small kindnesses and smaller cruelties, about the way she used to touch my hand at dinner and the way she didn't anymore. "I did," I said. "I don't know if I do now." Tom nodded. "Then let's make sure she doesn't take anything that isn't hers." Over the next 2 weeks, I became a different kind of machinist. Instead of measuring steel, I measured Sharon's lies. I checked our joint bank account every day. On September 28th, Sharon withdrew $1,500. The memo said, Home Depot. I drove to Home Depot, checked with the manager. No purchase that day under our names. I got a printout of our account activity for the last 6 months. 11 withdrawals. 8 of them had false memos. Total, $14,000. I installed a cloud backup on my phone. It synced automatically. Every text Sharon sent, every call she made, I had a record. On October 2nd, I came home early from work. Told Sharon I had a headache. She was on the phone in the bedroom. I stood outside the door. She was talking to Brianna. "The appraiser said the house is worth $320,000, Sharon said. "We can list it the week after his retirement party. Jean won't even know what hit him. By the time he figures it out, we'll have a buyer and a closing date." I went into the garage, sat on my workbench, stared at my hands. They were steady. Measure twice. Cut once. On October 5th, I met with Tom again, brought him everything. The bank statements, the call logs, the screenshots, the voice memo I'd recorded of Sharon's phone call. Tom reviewed it all. "Jean," he said, "she's planning to sell your house without your consent." "Can she do that?" "No, but she can try. And if she forges your signature, that's fraud." "What do I do?" Tom pulled out a form. "You file a homestead declaration. It's public record. It protects your house from creditors and, more importantly, it flags any attempt to sell or transfer the property without your knowledge. If Sharon tries to list the house, the title company will see the declaration and contact you." I signed it. Tom filed it that afternoon. "One more thing," Tom said. "The retirement party. When is it?" "October 14th, Saturday night." "Is Sharon going?" "She planned half of it." Tom smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Let her enjoy it." The party was at the Doubletree Hotel on Collins Road. North Point rented the ballroom. It was supposed to start at 6 p.m. I got there at 5:45. Sharon and Brianna were already there. Sharon wore a black dress I'd never seen before. Must have cost $300 easy. Brianna wore a pantsuit, charcoal grey, designer. They were standing near the bar talking to Linda and Linda's husband, Mark. The ballroom smelled like fresh carpet and catered food. The kind of smell you get in hotel conference rooms. Artificial, expensive. The ceiling was high, chandeliers hung down, fake crystal catching the light. Round tables covered in white linen filled the room. Centerpieces, folded napkins, place cards with names written in calligraphy. At the far end, a small stage, microphone, podium, a screen for a presentation, my life in slides. I stood in the doorway for a moment, took it in. 37 years condensed into a Saturday night dinner. Part of me wanted to turn around, walk out, drive home, sit in my garage with a beer and my tools and let them have their party without me. But I didn't. Measure twice, cut once, see it through. I walked over. Sharon saw me first. Her face changed. Surprise. Then something else. Annoyance, maybe. She'd hoped I'd be late. "Jean," she said, smiling now. Big, bright. The smile she used when other people were watching. "You made it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. She touched my arm. Her hand was warm. Her nails were painted dark red. "You look nice." I was wearing the same suit I'd worn to our wedding. Navy blue, single-breasted. It still fit. Barely. The shoulders were a little tight. The pants were loose in the waist. I'd lost weight over the last few months. Stress, poor appetite, too much coffee, and not enough sleep. "Thanks," I said. Brianna looked me up and down. Didn't say anything. Looked back at her phone. Linda stepped forward, hugged me. "Jean, congratulations. 37 years. That's amazing." "Thank you, Linda." Mark shook my hand. "You're an inspiration, Jean. Most guys couldn't stick with one place that long." "I like the work," I said. Sharon laughed, a little too loud. "Jean's always been consistent, haven't you, honey?" Consistent. The way she said it. Like it was a flaw. People started arriving. Co-workers I'd trained. Managers I'd reported to. North Point's VP of Operations, a guy named Doug Henshaw. He'd started at the company the same year I did. Worked his way up from production supervisor to VP. We'd had lunch a few times over the years. Talked about fishing, retirement. What comes next? "Jean," Doug said, shaking my hand hard. "Hell of a career, man." "Thanks, Doug. You ready for the next chapter?" "Ready as I'll ever be." "You and Sharon have plans, travel, projects?" I glanced at Sharon. She was talking to Linda again. Laughing. "We'll see," I said. Doug clapped me on the shoulder. "Well, you earned it. Enjoy yourself tonight." More people filtered in. The ballroom filled with voices, laughter, the clink of glasses. Waiters moved through the crowd with trays of champagne and wine. I took a glass of champagne, didn't drink it, just held it. Something to do with my hands. At 6:20, Richard Calloway arrived. Richard was the CEO of North Point Manufacturing, 72 years old. Silver hair slicked back, sharp blue eyes. Expensive suit. He'd worked at North Point for 40 years. Started as a draftsman in the engineering department, worked his way up, became VP in the 80s, CEO in the 90s. He'd steered the company through 2 recessions and 3 major expansions. He knew every person who worked there, knew their names, their families, their stories. We'd worked together on a tooling project in 1998, custom dies for a new product line. Richard had been VP of operations then. He'd spent 3 weeks in the shop with me and 2 other machinists, tweaking designs, testing prototypes, solving problems. He got his hands dirty, literally. He'd come in wearing a suit and leave with grease on his sleeves. He remembered me. "Gene," Richard said, crossing the room. He shook my hand. His grip was firm, warm. 37 years. Hell of a run. "Thank you, sir." "Don't call me sir, we're both old men now." I smiled. "Fair enough." "You ready for the next chapter?" Same question Doug asked. "I think so." Richard's eyes narrowed, studied me. He'd always been good at reading people. "You sure about that?" "As sure as I can be." He nodded, glanced at Sharon. She was watching us, smiling. Richard looked back at me. "You're a good man, Gene. Don't let anyone tell you different." "I won't." Richard moved on, worked the room, shook hands, made small talk. That's what CEOs do. At 6:30, a chime rang. Time to sit. People found their tables. I was at the head table with Sharon, Brianna, Linda, Mark, and a few of my co-workers. Sharon sat to my right, Brianna to her right, Linda to my left. The ballroom settled. Waiters brought out salads, Caesar, romaine lettuce, croutons, parmesan, the smell of garlic and anchovy. Sharon picked at hers. Brianna didn't touch hers. Linda ate quickly. Mark made conversation about the credit union, interest rates, loan applications, things I didn't care about. I ate my salad. It was fine, not great. Hotel catering never is. The main course came at 7. Chicken breast, roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes, dinner roll with butter. The chicken was dry. The vegetables were mushy. The potatoes were instant. I ate anyway. Mechanical. Fork to plate. Plate to mouth. Chew. Swallow. Repeat. Sharon leaned over. "You okay?" "Fine," I said. "You're quiet." "Just tired." She nodded, looked away, checked her phone under the table. I saw the screen light up. A text from someone named Deb. I couldn't read it, didn't need to. At 7:15, the plates were cleared. Dessert came, chocolate cake, 2 layers, frosting too sweet. I took a bite, set my fork down. Couldn't finish it. That's when Richard stood up. He tapped his glass with a spoon. The sound cut through the room. Conversations stopped. People turned. Waiters froze. The ballroom went quiet. Richard walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, looked out at the crowd, then at me. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice clear and steady. "We're here tonight to honor a man who has given 37 years of his life to North Point Manufacturing." "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard said, his voice clear and steady. "We're here tonight to honor a man who has given 37 years of his life to North Point Manufacturing. Gene Merrick started here in 1987 as a machinist apprentice. He was 22 years old, fresh out of the technical program at Kirkwood Community College. Young, eager, willing to learn." Richard paused, looked at me. "I remember the first time I met Gene. It was 1995. I was VP of operations. We had a problem with a custom die set. The tolerances were too tight. We were scrapping 30% of our parts. Gene was the one who figured it out. Spent 3 days measuring, testing, adjusting. He found the issue. A microscopic flaw in the die surface, 0.002 inches, barely visible. But Gene saw it. People were listening now. The room was completely silent. That's who Gene is," Richard continued. "He sees what others miss. He measures. He verifies. He solves problems. Over the years, he trained over 50 machinists. Young men and women who came through our doors knowing nothing about precision manufacturing. Gene taught them, patiently, thoroughly. Many of them are in this room tonight. Many of them run our most complex machinery because Gene showed them how." I saw heads nodding. Co-workers I'd trained, young guys who were now journeymen, middle-aged guys who were now supervisors. They remembered. Richard kept going. Jean also contributed to 3 patents, specialized tooling that increased our efficiency by 18%, reduced waste by 12%, saved the company approximately $7 million over the last decade. He never asked for recognition, never demanded a promotion, never complained. He just did the work. Sharon's hand was still on mine. Her grip was getting tighter. I felt her nails pressing into my skin. Jean is the kind of employee every company wishes they had, Richard said. Reliable, skilled, humble. He showed up every day, did his job, did it well. And at the end of 37 years, he's leaving us better than he found us. People started clapping. It built slowly, then louder. Some people stood up. The VP of Operations, Doug Henshaw, then others. Within seconds, half the room was on their feet. Applause filled the ballroom, echoed off the ceiling. I sat there, didn't know what to do, didn't know if I should stand, didn't know if I should wave. I just sat there. Richard raised his hand. The applause faded. People sat back down. Now, Richard said, let's talk about Jean's retirement. Here it comes, I thought. Jean is retiring under our early retirement program. This program is designed to help long-time employees transition into the next phase of their lives with financial security and dignity. Jean qualifies for several benefits. Richard pulled out a piece of paper. Reading glasses. He put them on. First, his pension. Jean will receive his full pension based on 37 years of service. That amounts to approximately 62% of his final salary, adjusted for inflation, for the rest of his life. Sharon shifted in her seat. I felt her lean forward slightly, calculating. Second, his 401k. Jean has been contributing to his 401k since 1992. With company matching and investment growth, his 401k balance is approximately $430,000. More shifting, more calculating. Sharon's hand was sweating now. Third, his stock options. Jean holds stock options earned through our employee stock ownership plan. Based on current market value, those options are worth approximately $270,000. I heard someone whisper. Jesus, that's over $1 million total. Not quite, I thought, but close. Richard took off his glasses, looked at me. But that's not all. The room went quieter, if that was possible. Jean also qualifies for our knowledge retention bonus. Sharon's head snapped toward me. Her eyes were wide. I'd mentioned the bonus once, told her it was part of the package, told her it was maybe $20,000. A little extra, nothing major. I'd lied. Richard continued. The knowledge retention bonus is reserved for employees who have contributed significantly to our intellectual property and training programs. It's designed to compensate employees for the institutional knowledge they've built over decades. Knowledge that, if lost, would cost the company millions to replace. He paused. Let it sink in. This bonus is rare. In the last 20 years, only 4 employees have received it. The criteria are strict. The employee must have at least 35 years of service. They must have trained at least 30 other employees to journeyman level or higher. They must have contributed to at least 2 patents, and they must have a performance record with 0 major incidents. Richard looked around the room. Jean meets all of these criteria, and then some. Sharon's hand dropped from mine. She was staring at Richard now, her mouth slightly open. Jean's knowledge retention bonus, Richard said, is $5.2 million. The room exploded. Applause, gasps. Someone yelled, "Holy shit!" Someone else dropped a glass. I heard it shatter somewhere behind me. The sound was sharp, final. People were standing now, not just some, all of them, the entire ballroom, on their feet, clapping, cheering. Some were whistling. I sat there, frozen, my hands on the table, staring at Richard. $5.2 million, said out loud, in front of everyone, in front of Sharon. Richard was smiling, a big, genuine smile. Jean, would you like to say a few words? I stood up. My legs felt shaky. I walked to the podium. Richard shook my hand, patted my shoulder, stepped aside. I stood at the microphone, looked out at the crowd, faces I'd known for decades, people I'd worked with, trained, shared coffee breaks with, complained about management with. They were all smiling, all looking at me like I'd just won the lottery. I cleared my throat. "Thank you," I said. My voice cracked a little. "I don't know what to say. This is unexpected." People laughed. Kind laughter. Supportive. "I've been at North Point most of my adult life," I continued. 37 years. That's longer than some marriages. More laughter. I glanced at Sharon. She wasn't laughing. She was staring at me. Her face was pale. Her jaw was clenched. "I never thought of myself as special," I said. "I just did my job. Showed up. Measured twice. Cut once. That's what my mother taught me. Make sure you're right before you commit, and if you're not sure, measure again." I paused. Took a breath. The room was quiet now. This bonus. It's more than I expected. More than I deserve, probably. But I'm grateful. To North Point. To Richard. To everyone who worked with me over the years. Thank you. The applause started again. I stepped away from the microphone, walked back to the table, sat down. Sharon was still staring at me. "5 million, she whispered. Her voice was shaking. 5.2, I said quietly. Her face turned red, then white, then red again. "Jean, why didn't you tell me?" People were coming over now, shaking my hand, congratulating me. Doug Henshaw, co-workers, managers. I stood up, shook hands, said, "Thank you," over and over. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Sharon stood up too, tried to smile, tried to play the proud wife. But I could see her hands shaking, could see the panic in her eyes. Brianna was on her phone, texting frantically, probably telling someone, probably trying to figure out what this meant for her condo in Denver, for her plans. Linda grabbed Sharon's arm, pulled her aside. I watched them from the corner of my eye. Linda was whispering. Sharon was shaking her head. Linda was insisting. Sharon looked like she was going to cry. After 10 minutes of handshakes and congratulations, the crowd thinned. People went back to their tables. Dessert was served. Coffee. More conversation, laughter. The party was winding down. Sharon sat back down, leaned close to me. Her voice was low, urgent. "Jean, we need to talk, now." "We're at a party," I said. "I don't care. We need to talk about this." "About what?" "About the money, about the bonus, about what we're going to do with it." I looked at her, really looked at her, saw the desperation, the calculation, the greed. I said. "We're married, Jean. That money is ours." "Is it?" Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out the envelope, the same one I'd been carrying since Tom gave it to me 2 days ago, set it on the table between us. "What's this?" Sharon asked. "Open it," I said. She picked it up. Her hands were shaking. She opened it, pulled out the papers inside, started reading. Her face went through several expressions in quick succession: confusion, shock, anger, fear. There were 3 documents. First, a copy of the Homestead Declaration, proof that the house was mine, that she couldn't sell it without my knowledge. Second, a copy of the bank statements showing her fraudulent withdrawals. 11 transactions, $14,000, all highlighted, all with timestamps and locations. Third, a copy of a petition for divorce, filed yesterday, effective immediately. Sharon looked up at me. Her eyes were red. "What is this?" "It's the truth," I said. "You're divorcing me?" "Yes." "Why?" I leaned closer, kept my voice low. "Because I know about the phone calls. I know about the plan to sell the house. I know about the money you've been stealing. And I know you were going to leave me the day after this party." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. "You told your sister I was useless," I said. "You said you couldn't stand next to me for another second. You said after tonight, everything changes." Tears started running down her face. "Jean, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I said. "And you were right. Everything does change, starting now." Linda was watching from across the table. Her face was white. Mark looked uncomfortable. Brianna was still on her phone, hadn't looked up once. "You're not getting the house," I said quietly. You're not getting the money. You're not getting anything that isn't legally yours. And according to my lawyer, that's not much. Sharon's hands were shaking so hard the papers were rustling. Jean, please, we can work this out. No, I said. We can't. I made mistakes. I'm sorry. You're not sorry. You're caught. She stood up. The chair scraped loudly. People turned to look. Sharon grabbed her purse. I can't believe this. I can't believe you're doing this. Here, at your retirement party, in front of everyone. You wanted tonight to be special, I said. It is. Sharon's face crumbled. She turned to Brianna. Brianna, we're leaving. Brianna looked up from her phone, saw her mother's face, saw the papers in her hand, stood up without a word. They walked toward the exit. Linda stood up too. Sharon, wait. But Sharon didn't wait. She pushed through the doors. Gone. The table was silent. Linda sat back down, looked at me. Jean, what just happened? I folded the papers, put them back in my pocket. Justice, I said. Richard appeared at my side. Jean, is everything all right? I stood up, shook his hand. It will be. Thank you for tonight. You're welcome, Richard said. He looked toward the doors where Sharon had disappeared. If you need anything, I'm fine, I said, really. Richard nodded. Congratulations on your retirement, Jean. You earned it. I walked out of the ballroom. The October air hit me like a shock. Cold, clean, sharp. I stood in the parking lot for a long moment. Looked up at the sky. The stars were out. Thousands of them. Bright and clear. I got in my truck. Sat there. Didn't start the engine, just sat. My hands on the wheel, my heart pounding. Measure twice, cut once. I'd measured Sharon for months. Measured her lies, her phone calls, her withdrawals, her plans, and tonight I'd made the cut. I started the truck. Drove home. The streets were empty. The city was quiet. I pulled into the driveway. The house was dark. I turned on the lights. Walked through the kitchen, the living room, the bedroom. It was silent. It was mine. I didn't feel victorious. I felt relieved. Like I'd been holding my breath for 14 years and finally exhaled. I didn't sleep much that night, but I didn't feel tired. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Sharon was asleep next to me, or pretending to be. Her breathing was steady, rhythmic. I wondered how long she'd been planning this. Weeks? Months? Years? I thought about the phone call. Jean's too stupid to notice anything. The words kept echoing, stupid. Like I was some kind of simpleton who couldn't see what was right in front of me. But I had seen. I'd measured. I'd documented. And now I was going to act. The alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. I showered, dressed, made coffee. Sharon came downstairs at 6:45, yawning, wearing a robe I'd bought her 2 Christmases ago. Morning, she said. Morning, I said. You working today? Yeah. What time will you be home? Usual time, 6 maybe. She nodded, poured coffee, checked her phone, smiled at something. I didn't ask what, didn't want to know. I finished my coffee, grabbed my lunchbox, kissed Sharon on the cheek. She let me, didn't kiss back. Have a good day, I said. You too. I walked out, got in my truck, drove 3 blocks, pulled over, sat there for 5 minutes. My heart was pounding, my hands were shaking. I gripped the steering wheel until they stopped, measure twice, cut once. Then I turned around, drove to the law office on First Avenue. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork and phone calls. Sharon hired a lawyer, a loud guy from Des Moines named Keith something. He sent me a letter demanding 50% of the buyout. Tom sent back a response with copies of the bank statements, the recorded phone calls, and the homestead declaration. Keith went quiet after that. But I'm jumping ahead again. Let me tell you how I built the case. After I met with Tom that first time, I went home and started documenting everything. Tom had given me a list, bank records, phone records, text messages, emails, receipts, anything that showed Sharon was planning to leave and take what wasn't hers. I started with the bank account. Our checking account was at North Star Credit Union. I'd had it since 1989. Sharon was added to it when we got married. Joint account, equal access. I logged in online, pulled up the transaction history for the last year. Exported it to a spreadsheet. Started going through it line by line. The patterns emerged quickly. In December of the previous year, Sharon withdrew $800. The memo said Christmas shopping. But I'd been with her for most of the Christmas shopping. We'd gone to Target together, bought gifts for Brianna, Linda, Mark, spent maybe $300 total. Where was the other $500? In January, Sharon withdrew $600. Memo. Home Depot, bathroom supplies. I checked the bathroom. Nothing new. No supplies. No receipts. In February, $900. Memo. Car repair. Sharon's car was a 2014 Honda Accord. Ran fine. No issues. I checked the odometer. No sudden changes. No service records. It went on like that, month after month. Withdrawals with false memos. By the time I finished the spreadsheet, I had 11 withdrawals totaling $14,300. All in the last year. All with explanations that didn't match reality. I printed it out, highlighted each fraudulent transaction, put it in a folder labeled Bank Records, set it aside. Next, I dealt with the phone records. Tom had suggested I install a cloud backup app on my phone, something that would sync automatically. I'd done it the day after the conversation with him. The app was simple. Every call, every text, every photo, it backed up to a private cloud server. I could access it from any computer, review it anytime. I logged in, started scrolling through Sharon's texts. She'd been careless, or maybe she just didn't think I'd ever check. The texts were all there, to Linda, to Brianna, to someone named Deb, who I didn't recognize. September 15th, to Linda. Gene has no idea. He's completely clueless. I've been moving money for months and he hasn't noticed once. September 22nd, to Brianna. The appraiser is coming Monday. House is worth at least $300K. We sell it, split the proceeds, I'm free. Denver, here we come. September 28th, to Deb. I'm so done with this marriage. Gene is the most boring man on the planet. I can't wait to start over. October 3rd, to Linda. 1 more week, then it's all over. The retirement party is Saturday. After that, I'm filing for divorce and taking him for everything he's worth. I sat there staring at the screen. The coffee in my mug had gone cold. The garage smelled like motor oil and sawdust. My hands weren't shaking, they were perfectly still. I screenshot every text, saved them to a folder, labeled it text evidence, added it to the growing file. Then I listened to the voice memo I'd recorded of Sharon's phone call, the one where she called me stupid, the one where she talked about selling the house without my knowledge. I played it 3 times, made sure the audio was clear, made sure every word was understandable. It was. I burned it to a CD, put it in the folder. I was building a case the way I'd build a machine part. Precision, accuracy, no room for error. On October 4th, I went to North Star Credit Union. Asked to speak with the branch manager. Her name was Carol. I'd known her for years. She managed my mother's accounts before she died. "Jean," Carol said, gesturing to a chair in her office. "What can I do for you?" I sat down, pulled out the spreadsheet. "I need to know where this money went." Carol looked at the spreadsheet. Her expression changed. "Jean, these are all from your joint account?" "Yes." "And you didn't authorize these withdrawals?" "The memos are false," I said. "I checked. None of these expenses happened." Carol made a copy of the spreadsheet. Logged into her computer, started pulling up records. After 10 minutes, she looked at me. "Jean," she said carefully, "it looks like these withdrawals were all made at the ATM on Wiley Boulevard. That's the one near Linda's house," I finished. Carol nodded. "And the timing is interesting. They're all on Thursdays and Saturdays, around the same time. Book club, yoga, financial seminars. Sharon had been lying about all of it. Can you give me a record of these?" I asked. "I can give you a transaction detail report. It'll show the date, time, location, and amount of each withdrawal." "I need that." Carol printed it, stapled it together, handed it to me. "Jean, I'm sorry." "Don't be," I said. "Just doing your job." I left the bank, drove home. Sharon's car was gone. Probably at Linda's, probably planning the next lie. I went into the garage. Added the bank report to the folder. The folder was getting thick. On October 6th, I met with Tom again, brought him everything. The spreadsheet, the texts, the voice memo, the bank reports, the screenshots. Tom spread it all out on his desk, reviewed each piece, made notes on his yellow pad. After 20 minutes, he looked up. "Jean," he said, "this is Ironclad. She's been systematically defrauding you and planning to steal your house. Any judge in Iowa will see this for what it is." "What's next?" I asked. "We file the homestead declaration today. That protects the house. Then we wait." "Wait for what?" "For her to make a move. She's going to try to list the house. When she does, the title company will flag it. They'll contact you. At that point, we file for divorce and request an emergency restraining order, preventing her from disposing of any marital assets." "And the buyout?" Tom leaned back in his chair. "The buyout is tricky. Iowa law says assets earned during a marriage are marital property, but there's an exception for assets that are primarily the result of one spouse's individual labor and that haven't been commingled with marital funds. The buyout fits that exception perfectly. So she doesn't get any of it. She might get a nominal settlement, 5, 10, maybe 20,000. But the bulk of it, that's yours." I nodded. "And if she tries to claim more?" Tom smiled. It was a sharp smile, the kind lawyers give when they know they're holding all the cards. "Then we show the judge these." He tapped the folder. "And we show him the recording. And we show him the bank fraud, and we ask him how much a woman who stole $14,000 from her husband and planned to steal his house deserves. And he says, 'Nothing.'" I stood up, shook Tom's hand. "Thank you." "Jean," Tom said as I was leaving, "one more thing." "Yeah?" "The retirement party. Don't cancel it. Let it happen. Let her think she's winning right up until the moment she isn't." I drove home. The October sun was low and golden. The trees were turning, red, orange, yellow. The air smelled like wood smoke and cold earth. I pulled into the driveway. Sharon's car was there. I sat in the truck for a minute, took a breath, measured twice, cut once, then I went inside. Sharon moved in with Linda. Brianna stopped answering my calls. Not that I called, I was busy. North Point processed the buyout. $5.2 million minus taxes. I ended up with about $3.4 million after federal and state withholding. I put $2 million in a trust. Invested $1 million in a mix of bonds and index funds. Kept $400,000 in a money market account for living expenses. Tom said the divorce would take about 6 months. Iowa required a 90-day waiting period, and then there'd be negotiations. Sharon wanted the house. She wanted half the buyout. She wanted alimony. She got none of it. In December, we went to mediation. The appointment was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. Cold morning. The kind where your breath makes clouds. The courthouse was on 2nd Avenue, old building, stone steps, heavy doors. Sharon showed up with Keith. He was exactly what I expected. Expensive suit, flashy watch, slicked back hair. The kind of lawyer who advertises on billboards. "Divorced? Call Keith. We fight for what you deserve." He looked at me like I was something he'd scraped off his shoe. I showed up with Tom. Tom wore a simple grey suit, carried a leather briefcase that looked like it had been through a war. No flashy watch, no slicked back hair, just a quiet confidence that came from knowing he was right. We sat in a conference room, long table, uncomfortable chairs, fluorescent lights that hummed. The mediator was a woman named Diane Fletcher, maybe 60 years old, grey hair pulled back in a bun, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She looked tired, like she'd seen 1,000 divorces and they all looked the same. "Good morning," Diane said, settling into her chair. "I'm Diane Fletcher. I'll be mediating today's session. Let's start by establishing ground rules. We're here to reach a fair and equitable division of assets. Both parties will have the opportunity to present their case. I expect civility and respect. Understood?" Everyone nodded. Diane opened a folder, scanned the documents inside. "Let's start with assets. Mr. Merrick, you inherited the house at 1247 Elmwood Drive before the marriage. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am. I inherited it from my mother in 2015. "And you never added Mrs. Merrick to the deed?" "No, ma'am." Diane made a note, looked at Keith. "Mr. Winston, does Mrs. Merrick dispute the ownership of the house?" Keith leaned forward. Your Honor, I'm not a judge, Diane interrupted. You can call me Diane. Keith cleared his throat. Diane, Mrs. Merrick lived in that house for 14 years. She maintained it, decorated it, made it a home. She believes she has an equitable interest in the property. Diane looked at Sharon. Mrs. Merrick, did you contribute financially to the mortgage, taxes, or maintenance of the house? Sharon hesitated. I didn't work. Jean paid for everything. Did you contribute in other ways, repairs, improvements? I decorated, I cleaned. Diane made another note. Decorating and cleaning are part of maintaining a household. They don't establish ownership. The house stays with Mr. Merrick. Keith started to object. Diane held up her hand. Mr. Winston, Iowa law is clear. Inherited property remains separate unless it's been commingled or explicitly transferred. Mr. Merrick never added Mrs. Merrick to the deed. The house is his. Move on. Keith sat back, looked annoyed. Sharon was crying quietly. Linda, who was sitting in the back of the room, handed her a tissue. Now, Diane said, let's discuss the retirement buyout. Mrs. Merrick, you're claiming it's a marital asset? Sharon nodded, dabbed her eyes. Mr. Merrick, Diane said, when did you receive notification of the buyout? September 23rd of this year. And when did you inform Mrs. Merrick of the amount? I told her about the package. I didn't tell her the exact amount. Keith jumped in. Because he was hiding it. He knew he was planning to divorce her and wanted to keep the money for himself. Tom spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, level. That's not accurate, Mr. Merrick had reason to believe Mrs. Merrick was planning to abandon the marriage and fraudulently dispose of marital assets. Diane looked at Tom. Can you substantiate that? Tom opened his briefcase, pulled out a stack of documents, handed them to Diane. These are bank statements showing 11 fraudulent withdrawals totaling $14,300. Mrs. Merrick made these withdrawals over the course of a year, each time providing false information about the purpose. Diane started reading. Her expression didn't change. She flipped through page after page, saw the highlighted transactions, the timestamps, the locations. Keith shifted in his seat. Those withdrawals were for legitimate household expenses. Then why did Mrs. Merrick lie about them? Tom asked. He pulled out another document. This is a printout from North Star Credit Union showing the dates, times, and locations of each withdrawal. Most were made at the ATM on Wiley Boulevard. That's near Mrs. Merrick's sister's house. Not near Home Depot. Not near any of the locations she claimed. Diane looked at Sharon. Mrs. Merrick, is this true? Sharon didn't answer, just stared at the table. I need a verbal response, Diane said. I used the money for things. Things for the house, things for myself. Did you tell your husband? No. Why not? Sharon's voice was barely a whisper. Because I didn't think he'd understand. Diane set the bank statements aside. Mr. Pritchard, you said Mrs. Merrick was planning to fraudulently dispose of marital assets. Do you have evidence of that? Tom pulled out more documents. This is a text message exchange between Mrs. Merrick and her daughter Brianna dated September 22nd. Mrs. Merrick states, and I quote, "The appraiser said the house is worth $320,000. We can list it the week after his retirement party. Jean won't even know what hit him." Diane read the text. Her jaw tightened. Tom continued. This is another text message dated September 28th, sent to Mrs. Merrick's sister, Linda. Quote, Jean has no idea. He's completely clueless. I've been moving money for months and he hasn't noticed once. Keith was pale now. Your Honor, Diane, these texts are taken out of context. What context? Tom asked. The context where Mrs. Merrick was planning to sell her husband's house without his knowledge. The context where she was stealing from their joint account. What context makes that acceptable? Keith didn't answer. Diane took off her reading glasses, rubbed her eyes. Mrs. Merrick, were you planning to leave the marriage? Sharon nodded, tears running down her face. When? After the retirement party. Why then? Because I thought Jean was getting a small buyout. I thought we'd have enough to split, enough for me to start over. But you didn't tell him you were leaving? No. And you were planning to sell the house he inherited? Sharon didn't answer. Diane sighed. Put her glasses back on. Let me be very clear, Mrs. Merrick. What you were planning to do is called fraud. Selling property without the owner's consent is illegal. Stealing from a joint account under false pretenses is illegal. Planning to leave a marriage without notification while simultaneously disposing of assets is not only unethical, it's actionable. Sharon was sobbing now, full, heaving sobs. Linda got up, came to the table, put her hand on Sharon's shoulder. Diane turned to Keith. Mr. Winston, I suggest you advise your client to accept whatever settlement Mr. Merrick's attorney offers, because if this goes to a judge, Mrs. Merrick will get nothing, and she may face criminal charges. Keith looked like he'd been punched. We'd like a recess to discuss. You have 15 minutes, Diane said. Keith and Sharon left the room. Linda followed. The door closed. Tom looked at me. How are you holding up? I'm fine, I said. You're doing the right thing. I know. Diane stood up, stretched, poured herself a cup of coffee from a pot on the side table. Offered me one. I took it. Black. It was terrible, burnt. But I drank it anyway. Jean, Diane said, sitting back down. I've been a mediator for 20 years. I've seen a lot of divorces, a lot of people trying to take what isn't theirs. But I have to say this is one of the more clear-cut cases I've handled. Thank you, I said. Your wife made some very poor decisions. But I want you to know something. The fact that you documented everything, that you protected yourself legally before confronting her, that shows character. A lot of men would have just exploded, yelled, made a scene. You didn't. I'm a machinist, I said. I measure things, Diane smiled. Measure twice, cut once? Exactly. 15 minutes later, Keith and Sharon came back. Sharon's eyes were red. Her face was blotchy. She wouldn't look at me. Keith sat down, cleared his throat. Mrs. Merrick is prepared to accept a settlement of $50,000 and waive all claims to the house, the retirement buyout, and any other assets. Tom didn't hesitate. $20,000. Final offer. Keith's mouth dropped open. That's insulting. That's generous, Tom said, given the fraud, given the theft, given the attempted disposal of assets. Your client is lucky we're not pressing charges. Keith looked at Sharon. She nodded. Barely. Fine, Keith said. 20,000. Diane made a note. Mrs. Merrick will receive a one-time payment of $20,000. All other assets remain with Mr. Merrick. Mrs. Merrick waives all claims to the house, the retirement buyout, the pension, the 401k, and the stock options. This agreement is final and binding. Do both parties understand? Yes, I said. Sharon nodded. Then we're done here, Diane said. I'll draft the agreement. Both parties will sign. The divorce will be finalized pending court approval. We stood up. Tom shook Diane's hand. I did the same. Keith packed his briefcase quickly. Sharon stayed in her chair, staring at the table. As I was leaving, Linda stopped me in the hallway. Jean, she said, I'm sorry. I didn't know what Sharon was planning. If I'd known... It's not your fault, Linda. She's my sister. I should have seen it. She hid it well, I said. Linda nodded, looked back at the conference room. What happens now? She gets $20,000. I get on with my life. That's it. That's it. Linda touched my arm. Jean, for what it's worth, I always liked you. You were good to her, better than she deserved. Thank you, Linda. I walked out of the courthouse. The cold air hit my face. It felt good, clean. I got in my truck, sat there for a minute, took a deep breath, measure twice, cut once. The divorce was finalized in March. I got the decree in the mail on a Thursday. 1 page, simple language. The marriage of Jean Merrick and Sharon Merrick is hereby dissolved. I read it once, folded it, put it in a filing cabinet in my garage, closed the drawer, moved on. Brianna sent me an email in April. It was short. Jean, I'm sorry for how things ended. I didn't know what Mom was planning. I should have been kinder to you. I hope you're doing well, I wrote back. Thank you. I hope you're well too. I didn't hear from her again. That was okay. I sold the house in May, got $330,000 for it, bought a small condo in Marion just outside Cedar Rapids. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, balcony with a view of the trees. It was quiet. I liked it. I spent the summer figuring out what retired meant. I got up early out of habit, made coffee, sat on the balcony, read the paper. I joined a woodworking club, started building things, a bookshelf, a coffee table, a jewelry box. It felt good to work with my hands again, different from the shop, quieter, slower, mine. In August, I got a call from Richard Calloway. He wanted to have lunch. We met at a diner on 10th Street. Richard ordered a burger. I got a Reuben. "Jean," Richard said, "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For handling that situation with grace. A lot of men would have made a scene. You didn't." I shrugged. "Didn't see the point." Richard smiled. "You know, we have a consulting program at North Point. Former employees who want to stay involved, training, mentorship, a few hours a week. Pays well." "I'm retired," I said. "I know, but if you get bored, the offer stands." I thought about it. "I'll keep it in mind." We finished lunch. Richard picked up the check. As we were leaving, he stopped. "Jean, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How did you know about Sharon?" I looked at him. "I didn't, not at first, but I learned to measure things. You measure long enough, you see what doesn't fit." Richard nodded. "Measure twice, cut once." "Exactly." I ran into Sharon once. It was September, almost a year after the retirement party. I was at Walmart buying wood screws. She was in the checkout line. I didn't see her at first. Then I heard her voice, sharp, irritated. I said, "I have a coupon, why isn't it working?" The cashier, a young kid with braces, looked terrified. "Ma'am, this coupon expired last month." "That's ridiculous. Use it anyway." I walked past, didn't say anything. Sharon didn't see me, or maybe she did and didn't care. Either way, I kept walking. I don't think about Sharon much anymore. Sometimes I think about the 14 years, the good parts, the waltz, the coffee, the way she used to laugh before it turned mean. But mostly I think about the lessons. Patience isn't weakness. Documentation isn't paranoia. And kindness doesn't mean you have to be a fool. I'm 60 now. I live alone. I build things in my garage. I consult for North Point a few hours a week. I have coffee with Tom sometimes. We talk about woodworking, fishing, nothing important. It's nice. I invested the buyout money carefully. It'll last me the rest of my life and then some. I set up a small scholarship fund at the technical college where I trained, for students studying machining. It's not much, $5,000 a year, but it's something. I don't date. I don't want to. Maybe someday, maybe not. Right now, I'm fine. People ask me sometimes if I regret how it ended, if I wish I'd done things differently. I tell them no. I measured the situation. I made the cuts. I came out whole. Sharon calls occasionally. Usually when she needs something, money, a reference, forgiveness, I don't answer. I don't block her either. I just let it ring. Brianna sent me a Christmas card last year. It had a picture of her and a man I didn't recognize. They were smiling. The card said, "Happy holidays, wishing you peace." I put it on my fridge. It's still there. I wake up most mornings around 6 a.m. Old habit. I make coffee. Sit on the balcony, watch the sunrise. The air smells like pine and cold concrete. The trees rustle. Sometimes a cardinal lands on the railing. I don't move. Just watch. I think about my mother sometimes. She left me the house. She worked 2 jobs to raise me after my father died. She taught me to measure twice, cut once. She taught me to be steady. I wish she could have seen how it turned out. I think she would have been proud. I think about the machinist shop, the hum of the CNC lathe, the smell of cutting oil, the weight of a micrometer in my hand. I miss it sometimes, but I don't regret leaving. I think about the retirement party, the champagne glass, the cold condensation, the sound of Sharon's voice, the moment Richard said 5.2 million, the look on her face. I don't take pleasure in it, but I don't regret it either. Measure twice, cut once. That's the rule. In the shop and in life, you don't guess, you don't assume, you measure, you verify, you make the cut, and you live with the result. I measured Sharon. I measured 14 years. I measured lies and phone calls and stolen money. I measured the weight of my own dignity. And when it was time, I made the cut. I didn't yell, I didn't beg, I didn't collapse. I stood up, I walked out. I took what was mine. Not revenge, justice. There's a difference. Revenge is loud, it's messy, it's about making someone hurt the way they hurt you. Justice is quiet, it's clean. It's about taking back what's yours and walking away whole. I didn't want Sharon to suffer. I just wanted her to stop taking from me. And she did. I sit on my balcony now. The sun is rising, the coffee is hot, the cardinal is back. I watch it for a while, then I stand up, go inside, get dressed. I have plans today. A bookshelf to finish, a friend to meet for lunch, a life that's mine. I don't think about Sharon anymore. Not really. But sometimes late at night, when the condo is quiet and the world is dark, I think about the moment she opened that envelope, the moment she saw the homestead declaration, the bank statements, the divorce petition, the moment she realized she'd lost. Not because I was smarter, not because I was meaner, but because I was patient. Measure twice, cut once. I measured her lies, I cut her out of my life, and I'm still here, still standing, still steady. If this story reminded you that dignity matters more than approval, hit that subscribe button. We tell the hard truths here. And if you want more stories about quiet strength and second chances, stick around. Thank you for listening.